briefing here on Thursday, the 14th of May. Yes, in our new time slot of 7 a.m. in the morning. We're going to come to you at 7 a.m. in the morning because New Zealand has returned to level 2, and we know you guys are commuting to work now. So don't forget, you can download this and listen to this on your way to work on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or Acast. This will be available. So search for New Zealand Sports Radio. In the news today, legal action in French football. Pakistan has a new captain. MP says there's no money on the table, and NRL confirm one ref policy. Let's jump straight into that football news. And Ames have started legal proceedings against their unjust relegation. Paris Saint-Germain were awarded the title, and Ames and Toulouse were relegated when the season was cancelled. Ames were 19th in the table, 4 points behind Nîmes and 10 points ahead of Toulouse. And whilst they're saying the cancellation was fine, they're not challenging that. They're saying the results of the cancellation or the impact that sends them down was not fair, and that they could have survived, or they would have survived from that. And they're saying that the league should be expanded to 22 teams rather than 20 for the next season. Over in Scotland, Rangers say the status quo cannot hold. It says that people have lost faith in the FPFL clubs. They were asking for an independent inquiry into how the vote was held to end the season. 13 clubs backed by, including Rangers, Hearts, and Stranraers, called for the vote, but 27 voted against and 2 abstained. So clearly, a split in Scottish football up there. Rangers claiming that the SPFL have lost faith, but look, they did win that vote. So, not all happy up in Scotland. Moving over to more happy news then, and Serie A in Italy is looking at returning on the 13th of June. So that'll be the same weekend as Super Rugby here in New Zealand. And then also with the German Bundesliga returning this weekend, they're saying that Borussia Dortmund says, look, another player testing positive would not be a catastrophe. Let's be honest, they've had several players test positive over there in the Bundesliga already, 3 at Cologne and a couple at Dynamo Dresden. So look, all the teams have been in lockdown isolation for this last week. So that kicks off this weekend. So sport definitely on its way back. I'm going to hand you over now to Ashwin for our cricket update.
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to everybody out here on this rather early morning rise that we have. Now, in the cricket news, Pakistan has a new captain. Yes, Pakistan have appointed Babar Azam as their new ODI captain, replaces Safraz Ahmed. The meteoric rise also comes for Babar Azam after being named T20 captain, and therefore making him the captain for all short form games for Pakistan. Azam's only 25, and he will be the captain for the 2021 season from July the 1st. Now, we know with Pakistan captain, it's pretty volatile, and we hope that he's a captain there for a fair while. Obviously, it'll depend on his results. Azhar Ali will continue to be the test captain for Pakistan. In other news, BBC are looking at reviewing the foreign coaches' salaries. BBC earlier stated that they weren't looking at making cuts for staff, pay cuts for staff, but with no play, the foreign-based coaches are definitely looking in line for a bit of a cut there. Akram Khan, who is the BCB chair, said that they may need to review contracts. Basically, if they find that the lockdown goes on long enough that they have no revenue for 5 to 6 months. Now, just to give you an idea of who's the coaches for Bangladesh, there's Russell Domingo as the head coach. Otis Gibson is the pace bowling coach. Daniel Vittori from New Zealand, our own Daniel Vittori, is a spin consultant. Neil McKenzie's out of South Africa as the batting coach, and Ryan Cook, the fielding coach. And in news coming out of Spark Sport, they have named Sunil Nathu, also known as Sunny Nathu, as the head of cricket content. Now, that's just something that's come to hand to me last night, and I'll have some more information about Sunny Nathu as we're able to get some information in the next few days. And finally, remember to join Taryn Rohit and myself on Swinging from the Hips tonight at 8 p.m. right here on New Zealand Sport Radio, we will have Hussein Hamid, and he'll be talking all things Australian cricket, as well as his roles that he had in Cricket Victoria, particularly around diversity in cricket and women's cricket. And that today is the cricket news, Paul.
Thank you, Archie. We do a question from the live chat from Hugh. What's going to be next on your cooking show? Hugh would like to know.
Yeah, look, I'll have to have a little think about that one. Any requests there, Hugh? And I'll try and put something together and see how successful that is. And hopefully it'll go successfully for the 100% of the time, not just like about 3/4 of it.
For those of you that don't know, Ashwin cooked his daughter a chocolate cake yesterday, which was going pretty well until there was a split down the middle.
Yeah, it was like an earthquake had happened.
Earthquake. Thank you very much, Ashwin. I'm going to hand you over now to Stephen for our birthdays today.
Oh, gee, I think we might just put that down to the harsh, dry conditions that we've had over the summer team. Well, good morning, everybody, and a special good morning to Hugh Rothwell, who's got up nice and early across the ditch. And birthdays today, a Winter X Games medalist, a New Zealand Women's Field Hockey International, and finally, a New Zealand professional golfer turned commentator. That's where we start. Frank Ivan Joseph Nobilo, born this day on the 14th of May 1960, is a professional golfer from New Zealand. Nobilo, who turned 60 today, had a successful playing career, winning 14 pro tournaments around the world. He was at his peak during the mid-90s, when he also produced a strong lot of finishes in all 4 major championships. Since his 2003 retirement, Nobilo has worked as a television announcer for major golf events. Nobilo was awarded the Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit in 1998. Our next recipient, Amanda Jane Mandy Barker Nee Smith, born this day, the 14th of May 1972 in Ranfurly, New Zealand, is a former field hockey international who played for the New Zealand women's team. Smith was a member of the bronze medal winning team at the 1998 Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur and was one of the athletes involved in designing the New Zealand Olympic team uniform. Smith, who turns 48 today, was runner-up in Women's International Hockey Player of the Year in 2000. Smith is also married to Olympic yachtsman and America's Cup skipper Dean Barker. And finally, Miguel Portias, born this day, 14th of May 1999, is a New Zealand freestyle skier who competes internationally. He was selected to represent New Zealand in the 2018 Winter Olympics, where he competed in the men's ski halfpipe. Miguel took home the silver medal during the 2017 Winter X Games, which were held in Aspen, Colorado. He had a score of 81 points and skied wearing a cast due to a broken wrist. Freestyle skier Nico Portias is Miguel's younger brother. There you go. And that would have been a top effort with a cast on. That's birthdays for today.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for that update of the birthdays. Moving over to Formula One news. And it looks like that Carlos Sainz will be replacing Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari, but first he will need to get released from his contract at McLaren, where he has just he was in negotiations to stay for longer than this than 2020. It looks like that that at McLaren then that Ricciardo would come and replace him there, which would then open up a space at Renault. Now, Renault apparently want to look at promoting one of their young drivers, but there is also the possibility of Vettel or even Fernando Alonso coming out of retirement and taking a seat there. So, as we said yesterday, there's going to be a bit of a merry-go-round of drivers. There always is when a big seat opens up there. So that's what's happening over in Formula One. I'm going to hand you back to Stephen now, who's going to take us through our Rugby League update.
Thanks again, Paul. The NRL will revert to using one referee for the first time since 2008 under a policy rubber-stamped by the ARL Commission. The league ended a week of speculation by endorsing the new rule on Wednesday night, as well as new 6 again call for ruck infringements rather than blowing a penalty. The changes come despite significant pushback from coaches and players who claim the rules of the game should not be altered mid-season. There's probably a little bit of agreement with that as well, because just sort of looking at some of the people who have commented across the code this morning, a lot of coaches not too happy about it, but it says here despite the ARL switch to a single referee for the rest of the NRL season, no full-time referees will lose their jobs. So I suppose that was probably a concern for a lot of the referees, just with the one referee. What's happening with those other officials? Although there's probably some supporters who will probably argue that some of the referees are not up to standard anyway. And finally, in an interesting sort of take or story, now Phil Gould slams rubbish anti-vaccinations beliefs. Phil Gould has slammed the NRL players who have not accepted a flu jab for promoting dangerous views amid a global health crisis. Approximately 20 players have refused a flu shot ahead of the competition's resumption, and the Queensland government announced those who do not take the jab would not be permitted to train or play in the Sunshine State. Now, Gould's come out and blasted the selfishness of the athletes who rejected the flu shot and touted unsensible views as the NRL desperately attempts to restart the competition. Now, he's basically said, I've gone back several times and tried to research the philosophy behind the anti-vax movement. I can't find absolutely nothing that makes any sense whatsoever. Yet I can find any number of research papers and evidence from experts telling us of the danger of not vaccinating. The 61-year-old also voiced his concern for the children of parents who chose not to vaccinate. I think what we fear for is their children. Why would you risk your children like this? It is not the fear of the adult who doesn't want to get a vaccination and who wants to talk about the theory, Gould said. Now, listen, he's entitled to his opinion. He's a former coach, former commentator, and pretty well respected in Australia. But, you know, in my opinion, this guy is not a medical expert. And for crying out loud, I think times like this, you really do have to leave it with the experts. Listen, that's the news from me, the league news from me today, guys. The engine is running and I've got to run, and I'll see you back tomorrow with some more league news.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for bringing us up to date on the league news. Moving on now to rugby union. And we've had confirmation that Nate Milner-Skudder will be playing for the Highlanders this season. What also came out was that he'd been offered a place or contract with the Hurricanes, but had decided that actually he was better off heading south to the Highlanders. And when you think that the Highlanders have lost Nabruwa, Thomas Umanga-Jensen, and Connor Garden-Bachop, all to season-ending injuries, you can see that they do have a need there. He'll also be joined by Karoy, who had been away with the Sevens, but with that all been postponed or cancelled for the year. Karoy can also now join up with the Highlanders down there. Interestingly enough, he wasn't doing interviews yesterday, which seems like a strange one as they're trying to put out positive news, you'd think. But anyway, not sure what's going on there. It looks like the club games, or the grassroots rugby, could restart on June the 20th. So that would be a week after Super Rugby, but that is contingent on the government expanding the number of people allowed in meetings. So currently, with just 10 people allowed, obviously you cannot host a full rugby game with that. So that 10 number will have to be increased when it gets reviewed in 2 weeks' time, or just under 2 weeks' time, on May the 25th. Impey has come out, Brett Impey, the chairman of New Zealand Rugby, has come out and said that there is no investment money on the table, that we are not chasing anything, he told the breakdown on Tuesday night. Now, this is after CVC has taken the investment company has taken a number in the English domestic competition and also the Pro 14, and is well into talks with the Six Nations. There had been a rumour that there was an American investment company that was going to be that was talking and was down the track with the discussions with New Zealand Rugby. And there has been rumours that CVC have been in discussion with both South Africa and New Zealand Rugby as well. So here he is saying it's just pure speculation at this point, and certainly not a priority. A lot of the rumours would suggest otherwise there. He said that the four SANZAR countries are very united and that they're still committed to SANZAR. Now, just because you're committed to SANZAR doesn't mean that you might not be looking for private equity, especially if they were willing to invest in all four countries. So interesting discussions there, but I wouldn't be surprised if actually we find out something is in discussions, even if it's not a finalised document that's on the table. Augustin Pichot has resigned from World Rugby now, since he didn't get didn't win the chairman's role there, and he has also resigned his position as head of the South American Rugby as well. He said he'll still be involved in rugby, but he just didn't want to take up a place on the board when they weren't going to be necessarily following if they're following a different path than the path that he believed they should be taking. And then finally, down in Tasman, the Nelson Museum is celebrating 150 years of rugby in New Zealand. It initially was supposed to be a physical exhibition, but they've turned that into a virtual exhibition. So go down, check out their website, and enjoy the celebration of 150 years rugby. That goes live today. So haven't had a chance to look at it yet myself, but I'll be definitely checking out the Nelson Provincial Museum website. Moving on then to Olympic sport and athletics in particular. Tom Walsh is rapt that the Diamond League is looking to return in 2020. He's had to train without knowing when he'd next be competing. And as he says, the reason that they do all this is to compete against each other. So he is looking forward to that. Obviously, travel will be the big thing, he says, and he reckons at 2 weeks' notice he'll be able to get up there. And he said this break in some ways has been good, as it's allowed athletes to sort out some niggles that they've had for a long time. And that whilst he hasn't been doing heavy lifting, he reckons he'll be able to get himself back up to speed, but he's dealt with those niggles, which is good. Looking at the international calendar then, and they're looking at restarting the Diamond League in Monaco on the 14th of August, before heading over to England on the 16th to Gateshead. Then the next stop will be Stockholm, and it's three. So that'll be the 14th, the 16th, and 23rd of August, before heading over to Lucerne on the 2nd of September, and a number of stops in September, bouncing around not only Europe but also heading over to China as well. And they also need to add in the Tokyo and Nanjing stops. So there'll be a lot of travel there. And you've got to say that is going to be a big challenge for athletics to pull that off. The Central Pulse will be returning to training, so in the netball on Monday. They can't wait to get back into their training. A couple of players took some time off from the beginning of the year, and left now finding that actually it ended up being longer than they expected. So that's talking about Katrina Raw in particular there. So she took off time from the Nations Cup. Obviously expected it to be longer, but again, another person who found the break was good to refresh them mentally and physically, getting back into sport. And then finally, in the ski fields could also be reopening. Under level 2, there's been good progress looking at the processes and procedures there. So it's good to see that snow sports also had the possibility of returning. No date has been set yet, and they're still working through the requirements there. Obviously, they're going to need to look at things like chairlifts and other gathering places to make sure they can keep social distancing, and that all hard surfaces can be cleaned on a regular basis. So keep an eye out for news there around what will be happening on our ski slopes during level 2. Thank you much for joining us. Don't forget, this evening at 8 p.m. we have Swinging from the Hip, our cricket show. And then also at 2 p.m. today, we'll have the long talk with Billy Stearman, our international surfer who is on his way to qualifying for the Olympics. So look out for those 2 shows today. You have started the day the best way, up to date with all of the important sports news. Thank you for dialing in to New Zealand Sports Radio. Don't forget to like the page, and also you can listen to us on the move via podcast and search for New Zealand Sports Radio.